Chicago Bears making the biggest news of the day yesterday, and we knew something was coming. They were doing something, contemplating changes of some type. The offense has fallen apart. They go from 4-2 into their bye week, and they come out and they're like a different team in a very bad way. So yesterday, Matt Eberflus, coach of the Bears, fires first-year offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. He'd previously been in Seattle, replaces him with Thomas Brown, who had been with the Carolina Panthers last year and was in that disastrous staff that got blown out after 1 year. Not a surprise, but I keep coming back to, and Devin and I talked about this yesterday before it even happened. How does this make you better? How does taking a guy who's on the staff that isn't getting it done offensively and saying, okay, don't do what your former boss did here. I don't know how that's going to make the Bears better.
Yeah, and I heard you guys talking about it, and I'm nodding my head with the conversation, agreeing 100% with you. Look, what were the Bears? Look, you said it wasn't a surprise that they fired him. It was a surprise to me. And I know they haven't played great recently, and they got 3 points against the Patriots, 9 sacks on the offensive line. And worse than that, Mike, Caleb Williams at times was coming out of the huddle, and you could see the look in his eyes like he didn't know what he was looking at. And that's the job of an offensive coordinator, to kind of slow things down. I can't be on the field for you, but there is coach-to-quarterback communication. I can tell you kind of what to anticipate to make it a little easier for you. But you could see that look in his eyes. He had no idea what the Patriots were doing to him, and they were really messing with him. It's the Patriots. They're not a very good team. So that's an indictment on Waldron. And on the flip side, they recruited him. The Bears I'm talking about. The Bears recruited Waldron. He was their guy. They thought he would be the best offensive coordinator to work with Caleb Williams. Now, I don't think he did anything illegal in Chicago. He probably didn't have any real issues off the field. So short of that, what are you doing? You've got to work this thing out. You got to stick with it until they resolve the issues. But this is more on, I know everybody is probably dancing in Chicago, hey, Waldron's out of there, but you got to worry about your leadership. If in this calendar year, it was 2024 that they hired Shane Waldron from Seattle. It was in 2024 that they got a rookie quarterback and said, hey, Waldron and Caleb, you're going to be joined at the hip. You're going to be joined together. And here we are in November, and they're already moving on. I don't see how you're better, especially at no disrespect, Thomas Brown, but I saw your last job too. His last job, he was in Carolina. That was a disaster. So really, what is the plan except for giving the fans of Chicago the 25 pounds of flesh that they want? They got the guy that they wanted. Now everybody is moving on. Oh, we got a better thing coming. I'm not sure you do.
And I think you're exactly right. It's the pound of flesh. They wanted something to be done. I was on Radio 670 The Score yesterday, and Dave and Haw and I were going back and forth a little bit about this. They were just happy that something was done. Fine, what do you get next? Are you really going to get something better? And it just feels like a stopover on the way to blowing out the coaching staff and hiring an offensive coach to work with Caleb Williams. Join at the hip with the guy who's not going to leave if things go well. That's what the Commanders have to worry about. Cliff Kingsbury is going to be gone sooner than later because of Jaden Daniels and his work with Jaden Daniels. And maybe Kingsbury end up being the guy who joins at the hip with Caleb Williams in Chicago. So that's the problem fundamentally that the Bears have. They need someone who's going to work with Caleb Williams, and if it goes well, he's not going to leave. I said that about Waldron in the offseason. Hey, here's what happens if Caleb Williams works out. He leaves as a head coach. It wasn't on the radar screen that he gets fired 9 games in. But they felt compelled to do something, and they weren't ready to fire the head coach in the middle of the season. I don't know how this gets better, unless Waldron was just horrible. And I'll say this. Early in the season, Jay Glazer reported on a Sunday morning Fox NFL pregame show that Mercedes Lewis, veteran tight end, been around forever. He told Jay on the record that he and tight end Cole Kmet and Williams went to Shane Waldron and said, basically, coach us. This isn't Pop Warner. coach us.
Ooh.
And I was stunned that he went on the record with that and was open about it. And it worked. It worked. They got better. They got to 4-2. But then comes the report yesterday from Mark Silverman of the Sylvian Waddle show on ESPN 1000 in Chicago that players went to Eberflus and GM Ryan Poles and wanted Waldron out. So something was off there with Waldron. Maybe Brown will bring something different to the table that Waldron wasn't doing. If nothing else, he had a front row seat for whatever it was that went sideways, that caused Waldron and the players to not click the way they needed to. It's just weird, though, because Waldron was in Seattle. He'd done the job for 3 years. It wasn't like he gets thrust into it, let's see if he can do it. He'd already done it.
Yeah, he did the job in Seattle. He was part of the turnaround for Geno Smith. He has the DNA that all these owners and GMs are looking for. Does he have any kind of relevance, any kind of connection to Sean McVay? He does. He's a big McVay guy. Worked with him in a number of capacities. So this is what they're looking for. Young guy in his mid-40s, worked with Sean McVay. We're gonna get our offense supercharged. And that's what they're all looking for. So in this NFL, where everybody likes the points, everybody wants the points, okay, that's the good part. Here's the downside, and I think Ben Johnson was smart enough to figure this out. All right, I'm an offensive coordinator, and I'm just going to sit here, and I'm going to wait for the perfect spot. Because, Mike, I was thinking about this the other day. Half the teams in the league don't like their offensive coordinator. Half of them. And it would be more than half. It would be more than half if some of those coordinators weren't also the head coach. So I don't think the Miami Dolphins like their offensive coordinator, but they still like Mike McDaniel. Okay, he's a coordinator, he's a head coach. Hey, you can't complain about the offensive coordinator in Minnesota when it's Kevin O'Connell. You can't complain about the offensive coordinator in Denver when it's Sean Payton. You don't want to separate those guys from the job. But if you look at it, most teams don't like their offensive coordinators, and they expect crazy things. They expect the unrealistic because this is an offensive league, and why can't you do this? And why aren't you averaging, like Aaron Rodgers says, 30 points a game? We got to get 30. No, all of you aren't capable of that. And just because you've got the profile that we're looking for, it doesn't mean you have the talent, doesn't mean you have the quarterback, on and on. You don't have the support. So Ben Johnson is right. I'm going to sit around. I'm going to get the perfect situation, because hotter than a coach's seat is the OC seat. OCs are now, that is the most pressure-packed position in football from a coaching staff standpoint, the OC. More than a DC, and I think at times more than a head coach.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.